le persone che sono in una situazione di sofferenza, di malattia e magari a volte anche di solitudine, e quindi le nostre dediche per la salute, e poi tutti quelli che ci hanno fatto richiesta, che sono sempre tanti, quindi oggi una dedica speciale per Francesca Maviano, Alessandro Gerard, Francesco Volturo, Alessandro Cremaschi, Carolina Negroni, Cristina Cremaschi, Daniela Galli, Stefano Castiglioni, Ferracina, Anna Maria Famigliacelle, Elena Sofia, Francesco Scottaro, Andrea Varini, Pietro Luigi Varini, Mariella Celoria, Cosmar Albino, Jan de Ruiter, Ferracin Anna Maria, Gariglio Mattia, famiglia Emilia Romano, Salute Armonia, Dutto Sabina, Silvia Angeli, Giuseppe Sassas, Enrica Dalsas, Davide Griampa, Pablo Grampa, Recini, Micmola, ok, Michela Recini, Osvaldo, Tim Mieschen, Anouk, Wilbert, Carola De Vos, Philippe Lavin, Pierre Laverne,
In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Good evening. Today I would like to start with two anecdotes that I've already told a few times in the past. But anyway, they remember us, they help us to get to the point where we want to get. Both are with some of my main masters when I was in India. One was called Geshe Tupte Rinchen and the other Geklakpala. And for me, in those 12 years that I was in India, they were Geklakpala was like a father, and Geshe Tupte Rinchen was like a mentor, like my main philosophy master. And they were two people that were very close to me, even if the first encounter with Geshe Tupte Rinchen was not the easiest, in the sense that as I got there together with my dad, and we talked with Lama Michel Rinpoche, saying, okay, that I wanted to live in the monastery in India. Lama Michel says, yeah, okay, go there. Geklapala will take care of you when you're at home, and Geshe Tupte Rinchen will be your main master. And so we go a meeting with my dad. We were very happy, enthusiastic, and he says, yeah, what did you come here to do? No, because it was recognized as a tulku, and I want to dedicate my life to the Dharma and study. And you think that this is easy? What is it? You drop like school, like when you are 12 years old, you think about moving here in the enthusiasm, then you spend maybe 2 or 3 years, then you go back home and you don't have neither one nor the other. And so we went away from that. We were destroyed. My dad was a bit out of his mind. And then eventually we called Lama Gangchen, kind of disappointed. But how? This is supposed to be the master that is supposed to welcome us and so on. But I was lucky because this brought me. Okay, Lama Gangchen also said, okay, no, if this doesn't work, then there is another one that can be a master. And we went to Geshe. Sorry, I lost the name. And he was extremely sweet, always extremely kind, very, very nice. And so he welcomed me in the best of ways, and it worked. But I had a bond with Geshe Tupte Rinchen, and still he became my main masters. And he was right at that time, because when we start something, there will be some difficulties along the way. It's not necessarily an easy path. And if one at the start already thinks that everything will be nice and perfect, then at the first difficulty you just drop it. But if you start out thinking that will be really hard and wow, this, I don't know if I will do it, I will do my best, but it won't be easy, you think about the worst, then eventually, yeah, it wasn't so bad. Actually, I did quite okay. And so, what we have, Geshe Tupte Rinchen, in the sense it was right. One of his qualities was also to be very direct, very sincere. But anyway, this was not what I wanted to tell. Geshe Tupte Rinchen once, it happens that His Holiness Dalai Lama comes and wants to give some teachings, and for his choice, Geshe Tupte Rinchen never wanted to have any special title or important title. Every time that he wanted to make him abbot, he just ran away. Once they put him in the list, those like to be nominated as abbot, and he literally fled away. Like the next morning, he wasn't there. He left a letter. I'm not coming back until you remove me from the abbot list. And so eventually they removed him and so on. So he didn't have any position in the institutional hierarchy, but he was the master basically of everyone. And to the Dalai Lama really liked him, so every time he would call him to talk personally and so on. And when there were teachings like that time, there were like 6,000 people, and the seat follows a hierarchy, like what year you would join the monastery, what kind of position you have, and there is a whole hierarchy, and more or less everyone knows who came before or after, and everyone respects that. And theoretically, he wasn't supposed to be in the highest place with the thrones, because there are supposed to be the abbots, those with an institutional title. But the Dalai Lama always placed a special place for him next to him. But he would always sit outside the temple after the last newcomers, close to the laymen's, where there was like an acoustic speaker where he could listen well, and so he was just relaxed. And once I asked him, but Kella, but explain me something. Why don't you just sit there? There is the place for you inside. You're more comfortable. You're close to His Holiness the Dalai Lama as he's teaching. Tea comes hot because as you serve tea to 6,000 people, when it gets to the people behind, then it will be cold, if there is any left. And he said, but what do I come here for? I come here to listen to the teachings. I know myself. I know that if I sit there, there is a part of my mind that will start questioning, but woe with that, what will that person think of me, that I'm sitting here and that I have a title, and what will the other people think, and but also look how important I am that he gave me this place. So I'm not here to cultivate my ego, I'm here to cultivate the Dharma. I know my weakness, and so for this I sit outside. And then also he said, the higher you are, then also the more you get hurt when you fall. Another story that goes in the same direction, Geklakpala. One day I come back home. I was coming from Italy there, and I wanted to give me a present, and I gave him 2 pairs of socks, because he was a person that even if when he finished his philosophy studies, he was among the best ones. And from the abbot, it was asked to him to become like a master of Dharma teacher. And he said, I can't teach what I didn't understand, what I didn't comprehend. So make me do anything else but not that. And so he was an administrator for many years, he was a teacher at the school, he took care of the constructions, he worked a lot during all his life. He will wake up at 3 in the morning to meditate until 6, then we will have breakfast together, then he will work like from 7 to 5, we will come back home, have dinner, listen to the news in Tibetan, then do some other practices, prayers, and then we'll go to sleep around 10. So this was his life. Then in the free day, on Tuesday, we would play this game. Then this game in English is called cream board. It's like a board, squared, with 4 rows in the corners, and you go there with a finger like this, like kind of flat things, like kind of biscuits. And we'll spend hours playing that. And anyway, I go back to Keklapala. What present will I bring him? I bring him some socks, because he's always working, he's always around, and the socks that he was using weren't good. And so I bring him some socks, like a Scottish, like a Bordeaux color, nice socks, and I give them to him, and he looked at me a bit like joking, and he said, and what do I do with this? Gella. Socks, shoes, feet, do you see the connection? And he said, yes, but I have already 2 pairs of socks. And he shows me where there was the door, where there was the entrance, there was his pair of shoes with a pair of socks that he was using, and then he was sitting on a bed there is the carpet on the bed, which is a classic Tibetan thing, and under the carpet there is another pair of socks, the clean ones. Look, I have already these ones. I don't need another pair. And I tried to explain him that his socks were old and the elastic wasn't working, and the were a synthetic, so it wasn't nice because the feet were sweating more. I tried to explain all the intrinsic qualities of the Scottish socks until at a certain point he says, "Okay, thank you." Then 2 days pass, and I see 2 other monks with the socks that I gave him. But what was his point? If I need 2 and I end up having 3, then 3 won't be enough. I don't know if this is clear. And so the point is, once I know my weaknesses, in part I need to respect them. Because naturally, if I have an attachment, and with this I don't want to judge Geshe Thupten Rinchen, if I have some attachment to the image and to being recognized, and I know that somehow I will slip in that, then I try to not put myself in those contexts where the tendency will be to slip in that direction. If I see that still I'm not so able to manage some things, like, okay, if I'm not supposed to eat chocolate, I don't go work in a chocolate factory. That is, like, pay attention to the context. And so I must know and respect these kind of weaknesses in order to help myself to maintain my balance. Because at the basis we start from cultivating what is good, abandoning what is harmful. And I know that in that context I slip. I do something that it's not good for me. And so in order to not get into that, then I try to protect myself. He didn't have anything against the socks that I gave him as a present. And it was not like a matter of principle. I took a vow of poverty, I must have only maximum 2 socks. It's not about that. It's about the fact that satisfaction comes from being able to value what I have and from not wanting more than that. And when I pass the limit of what is my need and I start to try to satisfy what are my like kind of desires, what is the limit of desire? Infinite. So the more I have and the more I want. But then it ends like me, was like, I have like 35 pairs of socks and I never find them. When is the moment of the day that I need to take the socks? I have like 2 like 4 pairs of socks maybe would be enough, like 2 for summer and 2 for winter, that would be enough. But no, we had like a little bit here, a little bit there, because this and that creates a sort of necessity that actually wasn't there before. But the point is not about the desire, the satisfaction. That's not what I wanted to talk about today. It's not the point of today, but that we have some habits. We have some habits that are not good for us. And the question is it okay to keep nourishing those habits and to live like that, or is it not good? If I see that it's not good, then okay, how can I not nourish that habit anymore? That can be about anything. Eating, habits from the point of view of verbal conduct, the way we speak, habit from the point of view the way that we relate with others, addictions of various kinds. There can be many habits, like from the physical ones, verbal, mental. We are made of habits. But when I see an habit that I recognize that it's not good, and so I don't want to continue to nourish that habit, I must then, with awareness, go on the opposite side. So here there is like a moment where I still don't have the strength to manage to maintain the same context and not act in that way. And so in that case, I must recognize my weakness and go away from the object, because otherwise we sleep. This is normal. So if I have a lot of attachment to something, maybe it's better to not be too close, because otherwise at the end I will not help myself to get on that thing. I will find thousands of excuses until I will just say, but anyway, I'm not able to not do it, until getting to the point of being a victim. No, but anyway, I have to do it because otherwise, like for example on eating, I know, but they offered me this. I mean, I can't disappoint who offered it and not eat it, and so on. Yeah, but you can find a way to say no anyway. So if it's not good for me, the first step is to maintain some distance, whether there is an object of attraction or aversion or of jealousy, envy, where we have the possibility of maintaining a certain distance, a security distance. This needs to be done. Something that needs to be said on this: the strongest is the habit, the stronger is the habit, and the addiction also. The more this cut needs to be done like in a very sharp way, because otherwise one says yes, but just a little bit, and that little bit brings another little bit, and it's a bit like the vow of not drinking alcohol. There are different interpretations in the Buddhist world. There is who says, no, the vow is not about not drinking alcohol. It's about not getting drunk. And actually it makes some sense, because it's about not taking substances that take away the clarity of mind. And one says, but why half of a glass of wine at lunch brings away my clarity? What problem is there? But then like half a day here, and then maybe in the day that I'm a bit more nervous, then they become 2, and when the 2 becomes a habit, then it can become 3, 4, then becomes a daily habit, and then at a certain point my threshold of perception changes, and then when I drink I lose the control of myself, and there I fall. And this is also why, for example, Lama Tsongkhapa was very rigid on this point, like on alcohol, because like Tibetans with alcohol, they've always been like they've always liked to drink a lot, chang, the beer that they make. Also, one nephew of Lama Gangchen, that is one of the brothers of Tonla that lives here. Every time that I used to see him there, he had like a tank of 5 liters that he always had with him, and if you offered him some water, he said, no, that doesn't make the head spin, I don't want it. And so he was always drinking his whole life with this chunk made by him with barley, and he had his own beer. And usually in Tibet that's common. Also, for example, at the monastery of Tashilhunpo, there was a time where before entering inside the walls of the monastery, the monks had the vow of going in front of one that was supposed to just stay still, and you had to do this in his face to understand whether you drank alcohol or not. This poor guy that had to stay there and smell everyone. But this is to say that alcohol was something that was very present in the daily life. And Lama Tsongkhapa was very rigid on this. And he said, here, the fact is that even a small quantity, and he was making the example, for example, of the quantity when you lift the thumb like that, you have like a little small kind of pool here. Even that quantity brings like a bigger one, and then bit by bit you increase, so there is no need, better no. And who works with addiction knows that at a certain point you need to make a clean cut, because eventually one ends up falling. So it depends on how strong is that habit or addiction. Probably many of us would say, no, but I don't have addictions. Let's see, that's something that needs to be considered. It's not so obvious. So it's important to observe to see what are the habits that I have, because sometimes there is the addiction to substances or to realities, external things, and then there are habits of behaviors that one is not able to not have that behavior. And all of this starts from a very simple principle that we have already mentioned many times. Our happiness and our suffering depends predominantly on us. And it depends on how we live life, not like something that one magic day happens and who knows what happens. There are the blessings, I'm sure they do. There are things that we can't really explain through our logical reasoning. I've seen many things in my life that we can put in the mystical, unexplainable kind of things from my level of logic and comprehension. I've seen many various things. But aside from all of this, as Lama Gangchen said, the real miracle is the change of mind. And Lama Gangchen called it hard work miracle. That happens through effort, constancy, because it's the process of transformation and the change of habit. And so, in the process of feeling better, and ideally of feeling good, one of the main things that we need to do is to be able to recognize what is bad for me, recognize what is good for me, and to learn to give more importance to and priority to being well, rather than to what I like that is not obvious. And then gradually to apply it in the daily life, so to be able to gradually cultivate what is good for me and leave what is harmful. And then as we proceed on our path, this comprehension becomes deeper and expands. We see more shades of things that we didn't see before that are not good for us, and so on. But at the basis is to see that it depends on me, it depends on my choices, on my actions, and this is not something that you build in some magical moments, but in the physical actions, in the interactions that I have with the world, in the words that I say, in the thoughts that I have, in my daily life. It doesn't happen from one day to the other, both in the good and in the bad. We unfortunately live in an ignorance, as it's described in the Buddhist text. It's the ignorance of not knowing, instead of the one of not of knowing in a wrong way. When we act, we are not aware of what will be the consequences of the action. As we experience the results, we are not conscious of what were the causes. We really have a hard time to connect the points of the past and the present and the future. We are not so able to do this. And here I can make innumerable personal examples, also starting from relationships to the body, many other things also. But what happens is that every action that we take inevitably builds our future. To make an example, me, I would have never said years ago that the problem that I had of digestion could create pain to the neck and to the arm. Then someone would say there are also other causes, and this is the point. Usually what we live is not caused by one single thing, but by a whole. But in that whole, if a part changes, then of course also the result changes. And so when we are able, as we gain some experience with life, to comprehend a bit more the relationship that is there between some behaviors and some results, and we are able to discern what is good for me and what is not good for me, it's really important to have this determination that what is not good for me, I must avoid it, even if I like it, and what it's good for me, I must cultivate it, even if I don't like it. But it's not easy, and so if I must avoid something that that hurts me, then as first thing, then I should protect myself from my weakness, get away from those contexts. Like I don't go and take the third pair of socks, I don't go and sit in the place that then I know that I like, and I'm there to think about what one person thinks and the other, and I protect myself. And this is a noble thing from my point of view, to be able to see and recognize one's own weaknesses and to be able to protect oneself from that. To understand things that are not good for us, one of the things that helps us in this process is to understand the symptoms. The symptoms show us that there is something wrong. One of the symptoms of which we already talked about many times that we see in our modern times is the symptom of anxiety, of having light sleep, of not being able to sleep, mental agitation, the inner feeling of rushing around, and so on. We know this. And so from this, one should see, okay, where does this come from? One will say maybe, this comes from a modern lifestyle that I can't do without. Yes and no. Partly it's true, and partly no. Because there are many things that we can do without. One of the great difficulties that we face today is the fact that we have some addictions to which we are not able to cut cleanly. And so we should try to live somehow in a less unhealthy way. And so we should try to create some balance. And one of these addictions is the addiction that we have to sensory perception through screens. It's something that, I don't know, how many days a week do you spend without looking at a screen? Days in a year? I hope many, but I don't think so, unfortunately. Of course, the more correct question would be, how many hours a day do we spend looking at a screen, from the phone, the computer, to the TV? 2 hours a day, maybe more. But the reality is that we spend an enormous quantity of any day on these screens. What do we do with these screens? On one hand, we write, we read some reports, we communicate the one with the other. There are many practical things that we do. But if we would use the screens uniquely for the practical, objective things that we need to do, and we will cut away everything that is around that, how much time would be left? Depends on how everyone uses that, but the reality is that there is a high percentage that we use for other things. Someone would say, yes, but there is nothing bad in it. We are consuming a space of our mind that then and then there isn't any space left for anything else. Our mind is overwhelmed constantly by information. And so at the end, we don't have any more room and inner capacity for processing emotions, to discern well some situations, to then create, to listen to our intuition. That is one of the aspects that is like the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful aspects of our minds. There are these people that have a capacity of intuition that it's very particular. Also in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there are some tools to develop this intuition and to use it better, but this is something else. But are really few those that do it very well, and when they do it, it's very particular, because if you ask something, if you go and see, it's very precise. So we, with all this information constantly that we abuse of, we partly close our capacity of having inner space for anything else, and we get into an addiction that we always need more and more. So when there is like a moment of void, then we need to take something. I don't know if it has ever occurred to you that you're with a person, the person goes to the toilet, and you take the phone in your hands. For what? To fill that void. Not for anything else. To take the drug. How many times you're at the restaurant and you see there is like a moment of void and you take the phone? For what? For nothing. To fill that void. The fact is that there is an addiction. And we somehow must be able to decrease what is harmful and to start to fill the space of our mind with something that it's good for us. This is important because our mind needs to be filled somehow with objects. Since when we wake up until when we go to sleep, there are always thoughts, also during the night. Our mind constantly, naturally, as an object of perception, doesn't remain without an object. Even when one tries to think about nothing, still is thinking about something. So this idea to remove the sensory objects and the phone, but with something we need to fill that space. Obviously, to fill the space, you need to make some space. It's pointless that I'm there, we are 8 inside of a car with 4 people. Do you want to come? No, if someone maybe gets out, then you can get in, So you need first to create some space, otherwise we are in the situation where we victimize ourselves. I would really like you to come, but there is no place. If I would really like that, then I will give the priority, I will make someone else go out and I take you. And this makes me remember a bit an example that I've talked about this weekend, that Papan Rinpoche talks about this in the Lamrim. So imagine you get into a place where there are more rooms, and in one of these rooms there is only one cushion, and it's your meditation cushion and you want to sit there to meditate, but there is someone else sitting on your cushion. If you go to the person and you start to say, look, you should get out, this is my cushion, this is not the place for you, and so on, the more you say it, the more the other person just stays there. No, you're not going away, I came here before you, what are you talking about? So what would be the technique to take your seat back? You go there, you look a little, you say hi, then you go out, you come back. In the other room, there is a pretty wonderful thing. You create an attraction, maybe a bit far away also, like so it's not really next to it. So when the person gets up and goes in the room, then you go there and sit. I was making this example. Okay, in our mind, when our mind is occupied, is busy with something, then first of all we need to give it a distraction to then give it then what we need. And this method of creating distraction, that is important. The mind has the capacity of being directioned. I open and close a quick parenthesis. It has to do with this, but also not so much, but it's also the beauty of not having to talk about one specific argument. It is said that about like 70 years ago in Tibet, when they were building one of the last golden roofs of Tashilhunpo, the tradition said that, and it still says that when you place the golden roof, it brings bad luck, that people just stay there and look. But in a place like Shigatse, when there was never any event, so when they would place the golden roof, everyone wanted to come. The administrator of the Tashilhunpo monastery at the time wanted to place the golden roof, and he didn't know how to do it, so that no one will come. And so the day before, he spreads a voice. At the dawn, actually, of the day that he was supposed to mount the golden roof, he spreads the voice that in the next mountain, in the mountain next to there is a dragon. And he starts to spread the voice and makes it so that someone goes. He was an important person, so they start to believe, and everybody starts to talk about it. And so half of the town, the village, has gone to see the dragon. The town was empty. He mounted the golden roof, so that there were not people around. When they came back at the end of the day, there were many stories about the dragon. The day after, actually, he went to see if there was a dragon. He who created that fake story. When we tell a lie, and everybody starts to believe that, and we end up also believing that. And this is something that many that want to manipulate know. The more you repeat something bit by bit, what actually nobody could believe, then it becomes reality in the perception of everyone. So it's important to have a good discernment and ask ourselves how things are. So, parenthesis closed. Anyway, what happens is that when we are able to make the mind sit again on the cushion, so to direction it, and to do this, it's important not only to decrease the distractions, so to take that object that is the phone, but to also really take some concrete actions. And the first basic one that I invite everyone to do is to remove the notifications. But really, all of them. How will I be able to know when there is an email? You will know in the moment when you will need to know that. I've heard, for example, that there is a term that is called like email apnea. It's a technical term, as I understood, that there are in some working contexts where one constantly is waiting for something getting into the email, and it's always like kind of holding the breath to see that there is like some email, and it creates really like some kind of apnea. To talk, this is to say the level of anxiety that is there, and we can change this thing. It's in our hands. Someone would say, no, but in the times where we live, you don't know my job, everyone expects me to understand right away. Yes, and you were reply a little bit later, but you will reply well. I'm convinced that many of us today value much more quality rather than quantity or speed. But this is to allow ourselves. Okay, there are a few cases where I need to be immediately available. Many other cases no. So I take time to do things with care, with attention, but respecting the way to be more, to have a healthier life. And once we are able to remove all the notifications, once we have removed the notifications, we can start having moments with no phone, take notes by hand to allow ourselves to read, turn off the phone completely. I know that it's hard, but turn it off. And as I joked a few times to do this act of courage of going out of our house with no phone, to go home and allow oneself to get bored. And this is to create some space in the beginning, and once we have this, then it becomes important to fill our space with something that helps us. And there is a very powerful tool, two tools, very powerful, that both need to be used. One is the breathing with awareness, and the other are the mantras. Both are very useful and easy, free tools with no collateral effects and that work. Even if there was a master that in order to give you your personal mantra you needed the transmission with the initiation, he asked $1 million and he had like many years, a waiting list of many years. Then he will do beautiful things like of humanitarian help in India, but he learned this Western thing that the more it costs, the more it values. So you want your mantra, $1 million. And many wanted that. Then maybe many others will give it, to many others they will give it freely without telling anyone. But usually it's something free, it doesn't cost anything, it doesn't have collateral effects, negative collateral effects. It has many benefits. So first we start from the breathing. The breathing is able to direct the mind, and both like activating it and also calming it. We can do both functions. For the majority of us, which one do we need the most? To calm it, because we have a lifestyle where we have a lot of stimuli and we're constantly activating the mind. The other day I was seeing what happens to a kid when you give him sugar. Does he get activated or does he calm down? You see it right away, especially if he's like a small kid that is not used to sugar. I don't know if it has ever happened to you. And with us, it's the same. But we take a lot of sugars, caffeine, and other similar things. I drink tea in the morning, which is not the same, but also not so different. And we constantly also have external stimuli that activate us. And also the way that we usually breathe also activates, which is like a high breathing on the chest. And so it's more than comprehensible that we have anxiety, that we have this mind that is very activated, fast, that then there is difficulty of being able to go deeper and to enter things in a way that it's deeper. We can hear this in our tone of voice, in our way of walking. In the last 10 years, in the most important cities of the world, the speed of walking has increased of about 10%. And this so we are activated, we are very activated, and so of course we do things more quickly. And so to breathe to breathe with awareness in a good way helps us to bring our mind somewhere else. And let's also remember that to be calm doesn't mean to be slow. One can do many things, and you can also be very quick, and you can also be very calm. One can be very slow and also be nervous and in a hurry. One is calm and okay, I'm doing this, I'm present to this. It's not that as I'm here, then my mind is already somewhere else. This is when we are not calm. The hurry is not to do something quick, but it's that, okay, as I'm here, then I already have the anxiety that I should be there. And I have the feeling that a time that I have is not enough. I have had many experiences of being there talking with some people and seeing that very often here maybe it's not so much the case, but maybe there is a conference, you have like exact minutes, and you can see that in 2 minutes you can say a lot of things. There are a lot of time actually if you are able to manage it well. And so often we can do a lot with calmness, without being in a hurry, without having that anxiety that as you're here, you already think about being there. And in order to do this, we need to breathe in a better way. It's one of the necessary parts. And for this, to have like mostly an abdominal breathing. To breathe with the belly. One of the things that I've already said in the past, but that I repeat, is let's try to dress ourselves in a way that it also is also comfortable in the sense, which means to not wear clothes that tighten the belly, because if that happens, then as I breathe, how can I have an abdominal breathing? I want to be able to do that, and so it's better to have like some dress some pants that are more loose, that allows me to breathe better with the belly. And maybe someone will say, but aesthetically I don't look so nice. You choose. Lama Gangchen used to say, beautiful mind is the most beautiful of the beauties. What do you prefer? Like a person that you like aesthetically but that is nervous, or a person that, aesthetically maybe she's showing the belly a bit more, but she's much more calm. So also because the sight gets used to after a while, and with nervousness it's a bit different. And so what happens is that also the way that we dress as an effect. So we should breathe with awareness, with abdominal breathing, ideally trying to make it so that the breathing out is longer than the in-breath. But to do this, we need to create some habits. So we need to have some moments where one, with awareness, breathes like this. So I breathe from the nostrils, and I breathe out from the nostrils. Breathe in and breathe out. And we go on like this. And just doing this already calms us. Then if we're able to add, breathe in, hold, breathe out, and hold, that will be even better. I heard an interview a while ago from two agents of CIA, and it was said that in their training program there was like a part called like mind trash. that means that when you're in a moment when there is a lot of tension, mind can start to spin around. But if I had done that in a different way, I can't do things well. And this mind trash, they call it. And the tool that it's given to the agents, one of the tools to face this and to remove that mind trash, even if we are not CIA agents or anything, but we have a lot of mind trash. It's what they call the cubic breathing, that in their context they teach 4, 4, 4, 4. So breathe in with 4, hold with 4, breathe out with 4, and hold with 4, and breathe in with 4. So this cubic breathing helps to calm the mind, helps to decrease all those thoughts that are there. Me, these days, I've also experienced that in these days, during the night, sometimes I wake up with the pain in the arm, and so I was there and I couldn't find a position with no pain. And so, okay, I'm here. I started breathing with 4, hold with 8, breathe out with 8, hold with 4. After like 2 breathings, the pain didn't go away completely, but mostly it did go away. So then after that I was able to fall asleep again. These are tools that are useful in many contexts, but of course you need to use them. Then you need to create familiarity. So first thing, let's try to breathe with awareness. The other thing is that our mind is used to being full of things. It's not used to being empty, so we need to fill it with good things, to have some objects to which one can think. And here I invite you to keep on studying, to read, to learn new things all life long. We have this strange idea that you study to then get like a degree, to then get a job, don't we? For me, no. One studies to expand the mind, to train the brain, to train the mind, to have more capacity of judgment, to take better choices, to have a capacity of comprehending things in a different way, to keep mind more clear, more awake. And so we should always study, we should always learn new things. One could say, yes, but it's a bit tiring. Yes, partly it is, but partly the results of not learning new things is much more difficult. And here we're going in a direction that is based on minimum effort and maximum result, where we also don't want to make any effort also with our mind. But also now we're already seeing an increase in dementia in older people. One of the reasons for this is also microplastics. Another reason is lifestyle. It's a lifestyle that decreases the blood in the brain, and a lifestyle that increases inflammation from chronic stress to the quantity of caffeine, alcohol, or marijuana, or many other things that go and increase these inflammations, even if microinflammations. And this increases the speed of decay of the brain. And then another factor is that we are using our brain less, and so it turns off more quickly. And so for this, when we take a person that is 100 years old, that has a clear mind, it's because that person has never stopped using it to be active. my grandparent, he formally stopped working when he was 92. He stopped going to the company that he founded in with like 97 years old. And let's say that he started a decay like around 98 and lived until 100. But because he never stopped, he would still go around to fairs and participate into meetings, thinking, reading. Mind needs to be used. So I invite you, we should study, we should learn, put ourselves in situations that make us uncomfortable, so maybe to learn a new language, even if we will never use it. It's not a waste of time. The waste of time is to sit there and do nothing and to allow the mind to switch off. That is a waste of time. It's a bit like saying, I need to make some calculations. Instead of putting it into Excel, then I do it by hand. Is it a waste of time? One could say maybe yes, because I can just do that in 10 seconds instead of sitting there like for 2 hours if it's up to me. Because now I haven't done calculations by hand since I don't know when. But actually that makes the mind trained. So this is also a request that I make to everyone. If we don't keep our mind trained and activated, bit by bit it will switch off. And what happens is that there are many things that we think that it's like a mind that is activated, but actually it's just using what we have already learned. So like there is a moment of learning, of getting to know something, and then there is a moment where we kind of live off the income of what we have already learned. When was it the last time that we put ourselves in front of something new? That's important. To play an instrument, to learn a language, to study an argument that we don't know. The point is not to become like a teacher of physics, but like to open our horizon. It's to understand that the important part in this is not the product that is being created, but it's the process that transforms us. I think this is clear, It comes to my mind when I was in Pekino many years ago. There is a park called Beihai. There is a white stupa, very beautiful. Beijing, with a Yamantaka mandala. And going there was this floor made with stone. It was the end of a day in summer, and there were people, both young and old people, that were there with like a sort of stick, but like with a brush at the end, like to paint, and a bucket with water, and they would take that and write poetry on the floor with water. And as they went on composing poetry, then it would dry. And I saw that and was like, wow, how beautiful, because one is creating without the attachment to what is creating. Because as you're creating already, it's fading away. And also this gives a freedom that it's not indifferent, because usually we have this weight of having to produce, of the judgment, of having to do things nicely. What will the other think? If it's something nice, then the others must recognize it. There one is just doing for the process, for what maybe that person wrote the most beautiful thing in your life, and how beautiful that you did that, because that transforms you, and not because really one has to read it. I had a similar example that then I didn't follow completely. There was a period of my life, I don't know why, at a certain point, it came to my mind to write poetry. I never did it before that, and also after that, it lasted like 1 month. And so at the beginning I thought, me writing poetry, no, it's not for me. And so I took the pen and I will write on the glass. And so I was like, okay, at least it doesn't remain on the paper and I can remove it. And the first time that I wrote it, then I was about to clean it away, and it was like, yeah, it's not so bad. And then I passed it on paper. And the second time, then initially came to me to put it in paper, you know. But then I thought, okay, no, I don't want the weight, you know, to feel that I'm writing something good. And I did it on the glass again, and like this went on for like a month. But it's this act of learning new things, of doing things not for the result, for what we will produce, but for the process, and to allow oneself to do these kind of things in the daily life. And in one way, it's kind of like doing nothing, because it seems that one maybe is not producing nothing, but it's fundamental to allow oneself this. I was talking with a doctor friend from the Netherlands yesterday, and she said that there was an article in the newspapers in the Netherlands where a part of the government declared formally the importance of, to the citizens of not doing anything, and that wanted to set some rules so that people could have some space to do nothing. It's strange that we have to get to have some regulation on this, but the point is that this lifestyle where we're always producing doesn't produce. And so it's to allow myself to just be, to give importance to the process rather than what I produce. And so for this I invite you to study, to learn, to sing, play music, paint, not because someone is supposed to see it or appreciate it or buy it, but for the process that allows me to live. This is fundamental. Another thing that is very important in the Tibetan Buddhism is that to feel our day, to feel our mind well, it's called protection of mind, that in Sanskrit is called mantra. The mantra, the literally the name means protection of mind. And the first idea is that usually it's like a way to protect from what? From evil spirits, protect from some kind of interference. In some cases, yes, but mostly is to protect ourselves from our own stupid things. Protect the mind from recurring thoughts, protect the mind from going around on the past and projecting on the future, protect the mind from jealousy, envy, fear, and so on. We should take a mantra that is like a formula, like of words. The mantra has a particular characteristic that while prayers, the so-called verses of aspiration, are translated in the various languages, mantras have never been translated. You can understand the meaning, but they have never been translated. One of the reasons is that in Sanskrit, the language in which mantras are recited, there is a part that in Tibetan is called Tabdrup. That is the science of how words are created and formed. I've never studied this, but I've seen it very superficially. But what happens is the following, that every syllable, every letter is a sound. Vowels and consonants have an element. Elements between them, they have some different ways of interacting. So water with fire, with earth, with wind, and so on, and space. When I want to create a word that has an energy of opposition, that means destruction, eliminating, some sounds need to be used that, with their relation that they have between like vowels and consonants, creates a vibration and energy that matches with the meaning of the word. So there is a whole study where words need to have a vibration, an energetic vibration that is coherent with the meaning that is attributed. One of the sounds or words that is used, for example, in mantras is pet. What kind of manifestation has pe? Like some kind of welcoming, of opposition, of elimination. Pet means to clean, to eliminate. It's not that om means that, it's different. And so in Sanskrit, this is something that exists. Words have this characteristic, but where is it placed a special emphasis on this is mantras. So mantras have an aspect where the sounds that make up the mantra are not placed randomly. There is a coherence from the point of view of the meaning, the intention that comes with that mantra, and the energy that creates those vibrations. This is one important aspect. For this, there is a difference between Mani Padme Hum and Babi Babu. There is a difference between this, other than the meaning that one attributes. This is one important characteristic of mantras. Then if one wants to study this in the study of Sanskrit language, definitely there is where one can study what are the elements and how they relate. This is all knowledge that is available, but me, I never had the opportunity of going deeper into this, so I am not going to explain what it's not mine from that point of view. There is another fundamental aspect, that is that the mantras are transmitted with some values, with some intention, with some emotions, qualities, in inner qualities. That is similar to words in general. Words have a power, right? A word that is used with gentleness has a certain power, and a word that is used with aggressiveness and violence has another power, different power. And I don't know how to describe it and to put it into a logical way. There is who explains it in a logical way, but from my experience is that when a word is transmitted initially, in Tibetan it is said Dacha Kempo, the first that transmits that words, that creates it. A word is created like as a sound that actually represents a meaning, that contains and transmits a concept, an emotion, a meaning. When I teach that word to the other, that word continues to bring that meaning. And it's interesting to see that even when a word is used out of context, the meaning somehow still maintains itself. You can just see like with bad words. Swear words are not something that you can say. Sometimes people come to me and say some swear words, and then they're like, "Oh, sorry, Lama." No, it's not that I have like a taboo, but what happens is that when I use a word that in its origin has a violent meaning, even if I use it out of context, it still brings that meaning. I don't know if you agree or not with this, but this is my perception. I have a hard time to put it in some logical terms that is easily comprehensible, but there is something that is transmitted with this. And the more one word is used by more people in a certain context with a certain meaning, the more that word takes that power. You can also do the other way around. You can also use a word that originally has a virtuous context, a virtuous meaning, and you use it out of context, and with time that word loses that power, that meaning. This also happens. Also, for example, the word peace. You can, if you just abuse this word, use it in the wrong context, then bit by bit it loses power. Even if there is like a place where it remains, but very often it's like kind of diluted. A mantra, when it's transmitted, it has like a meaning, an intention. It brings a story also, kind of witnessing. There is something that goes beyond that sound. And that is transmitted from one person to the other. So a mantra usually is not something that you read in a book and you recite. Ideally, not compulsory, is that you should have a transmission. I have received that mantra from someone that transmitted it to me, that in its turn was transmitted, received it from someone else, and until like the one who created it. Usually that's Buddha Shakyamuni. And so when it comes to me, it's not just a sound, it comes like with a context, with an energy, and all of that is transmitted. Words, sounds have a particular function. There is many functions, but one in particular that is in Tibetan called Tamkti, in Sanskrit Samaya Sattva, translated usually it's commitment being, but it's a translation that in this context doesn't really work. It would be better like a sort of bridge. When I say something, if I say love, this sound that we hear, love, is it free of meaning, or is there something that you connect with? There is something there, it's not just a word. Love by itself, does it transcend the word love? Yes, it's something that doesn't have words, doesn't have shape, it's something that it's a deep feeling that we have already felt, both on our tone from ourselves or from towards others. Love is something that is so great that it doesn't have shape, sound, color. There is no way to contain that feeling in something that can have a form, whether it's like a visual or a auditory. So we could say that love as a feeling would be the wisdom being, the real meaning, the real essence. The word acts like a bridge. So when I say love, naturally, who has had the transmission, so that connects that sound with that meaning. When he hears that sound, he connects to that meaning, to that feeling. So the feeling, the meaning, we can call it the wisdom being. The bridge that is created usually is called the commitment being. Words are bridges, just like images. When we see the image of Lama Gangchen, what do we see? A painting. This painting was made by this great friend of Lama Gangchen that was in Sri Lanka. He was a doctor that was an acupuncturist in Sri Lanka. Was a crazy character. He had like 3 hospitals. He would spend his whole day sitting on a bench, receiving people freely. And he had 5 Rolls Royce, and he will pick up his guests with that. They sent also the Rolls Royce to pick up Lama Gangchen, and so he went with all the disciples, like 15 people, also like in also Lama Gangchen is not that will be like, how beautiful that I'm going the Rolls Royce. No, it's like everyone, also people in the trunk. So this image was painted by him. What do we connect with? With a painting, with some colors placed on a painting, or was it like a bridge? Who knew Lama Gangchen has his own memories, his own emotions, and he connects with them. Who didn't know him and knows him in an indirect way through like stories, the self-feeling, everything else, then that's also an introduction, just as I was introduced to Lama Tsongkhapa. But the point is that the image is a bridge, is something that makes me connect with that being. So the image, words, sounds are bridges that connect us with a meaning that transcends matter. The same thing with also smells. So when we recite a mantra, it has a material, physical, energetical aspect. It has an aspect of meaning attributed to each one of the words, and it has the aspect that that mantra has been transmitted, and when the transmission is giving, then that mantra becomes a bridge to connect with that meaning, which is not a conceptual meaning. Very often the mantra is used as a bridge to connect with an archetype, simplifying like an archetype. But to connect also with an idealized image of what we would like to become, there is a lot behind that. When we recite a mantra, every time, in a non-conceptual way, automatically we connect with all of that. So we connect with the meaning, the energetical aspect, the aspect of this bridge, so with that state, the inner state with which we connect. And it's not here like a mystical, strange thing. We do the same with a lot of daily things, with songs, with swearing words. We connect with deeper meanings. So the idea of taking a formula that has been recited for billions and billions of times with a virtuous intention that has been transmitted for centuries with that same intention, and it came to us in an uninterrupted way, in that way. Getting in touch with that and to recite it, it helps us to occupy our mind with that and to familiarize ourselves with that. And it's something that we must experience. We have to go there, try, recite, not once or twice, but hundreds of thousands. And bit by bit, there is a moment where the mantra becomes like part of our thoughts, like kind of the songs that stay there going around our mind. I think we have already all experienced it. Comes to my mind Baby Shark. If that was a mantra, that would be very powerful. And also for this, melodies exist. Melodies also are something that combined with mantras also have a power. There is like a huge difference in what happens both like on as we recite or as we sing. As we sing, there is a much more balanced activity between the left and the right side. As we are speaking now, usually is more either rational or emotional. And as you're singing, actually works on a different level. There are also some melodies that in Tibet are a secret. They are transmitted only to those that have done a whole particular path. I tried to record some of these melodies, but I was not able to do that. But we will lose them in a bit. It doesn't matter. We transmit them only to who's ready to receive them. That's it. And also here there are some melodies that are important to be transmitted. The recitation of mantra exists in two ways. The oral, verbal mantra that you recite verbally, and there is the mantra that is recited mentally. And both things are there. In order to do the mental recitation, one first needs to have created a good familiarity with the verbal mantra recitation. The mental recitation then needs to be matched, combined with also the breathing. It's a very good practice, but it requires a whole preparation before. But I would say we start with the verbal mantra. We start by experiencing with it, reciting, and using that to fill our space a bit. I remember once that I went to a sort of house of old people in south of India, and there were old Tibetans with no children. It was a situation that was quite difficult, but I would see these old people, and they were like one worse than the other from the physical point of view, and they would do nothing else but reciting mantra from like morning to evening, and they were all smiling. They were serene. You will see that they were bad physically, but you wouldn't see like long faces, nervous people. You will see that all of them had like sort of serenity in the midst of the suffering that they had physically. And for me, the fact that they had something virtuous, positive with which they could feel their lives in the moment, that was really a lot. But this is not just about people that are towards the end of their lives, this is about all of us today. The fact of being able to feel with something virtuous our life in the moments between one thing and the other, like when we wake up in the morning, when we are in the subway, whatever moment, to be able to feel with something virtuous that makes us connect with what we want to familiarize ourselves with. That's marvelous. I would like to transmit and explain also one mantra that is known as the essence of the teachings of Buddha, and also as one of the most known and famous mantras. The mantra is the Om Mani Padme Hum, that in its turn there are two different levels of interpretation. On one hand, it is said that it's the mantra of compassion, so naturally it connects us with Avalokiteshvara, who is the representation, the embodiment of compassion developed to the maximum potential in a physical state. Who is on this side is able to see it. Was at home can Google Avalokiteshvara, and Avalokiteshvara, there it has the first two central hands like this, that is the gesture of opening hands. What does it represent also? Chen Rezik. Chen Rezik. Chen means eyes. Re means everyone. Sik means that sees. So that means who sees, who has an eye for everyone. So what is compassion? The capacity of seeing the other, first of all. And who has an unconditional compassion as an eye for everyone. So it's not that Cherezik is this being with 1,000 arms. Cherezik is represented in this way. To say 1,000 is a way to say innumerable. It's a way to say there is one hand and one eye for everyone. So not only I see the need of everyone, but I also act for that need. So Chenrezig has 1,000 arms because the hand represents the action, and the 1,000 eyes. In every arm, in every hand, there is an eye. The eye represents the capacity of seeing the other than oneself. So compassion is born out of empathy, through which it develops into love, that then turns into compassion, that then transforms into altruism. The process is empathy, sympathy, love, compassion, altruism. Compassion represents the basis for altruism. So let's imagine the opposite of the obsession with self-gratification, the opposite of that obsession with the I and the mind. So in a few words, this is Avalokiteshvara, the embodiment of these qualities. Om Mani Padme Hum or Om Mani Padme Hum, depends what the Tibetan pronunciation is Peme. The Sanskrit is Padme. Lama Michel is transmitting it with Peme, which is what he received. It's just two different lines of transmission, but it's the same mantra. When we say Om Mani Padme Hum, we are connecting with Avalokiteshvara. So it connects us with love, with compassion, with the effect of seeing the other, of going beyond our own selfishness, with the obsession with self-gratification. And here there is already a lot. There is no need of anything else. And this one level of the mantra. And on this level we can practice really a lot. We can recite the mantra. Traditionally we use a mala. I have one here. I've always said wooden malas, very basic. Then another lama gave me this very chic mala that now I have. That is more like a sign of the friendship that we have than other. And one creates the habit. The interesting thing is that when at the beginning, I was able to create this link between the Om Mani Padme Hum and Avalokiteshvara, and between Avalokiteshvara and compassion. When I recite the mantra, with what am I connecting with? With compassion. Willingly or not, whether I'm aware of it or not. Naturally, that link happens. The mantra is a bridge that brings me to that. And as I'm reciting the mantra, there is less room for other thoughts. If the other thoughts are very strong, then recite a longer mantra. For example, the 100 syllables. Seems difficult, but it's not. It seems like a joke, but Really, it's like a mantra that seems very difficult, but you just recite it a few ways. It's much easier than it seems to learn it. So the first level of Om Mani Padme Hum is that it links us with compassion. The second level, Om, it's three sounds put together, A, U, and Ma. And Ma. A, if we take the Om and we open it, we have Aum. A with U becomes O. O with Ma becomes Om. Om. So the sound Om, both as it's written in Tibetan, originally also in Sanskrit, it's made out of three parts, and also as a sound is made out of three parts. There are many different meanings that are attributed to this, but one of the meanings that in this context is fine is body, speech and mind, that is the whole being. We are made out of body, speech and mind. Another meaning is body, speech and mind on a gross, subtle and very subtle level, but that is the being anyway. Mani means, literally means jewel. Padme means lotus flower. Hum is the essence of the union, in the sense that it's the enlightened mind. Actually, it's interesting that the mantra of Mani Padme Hum, when we say that it's the essence of all the teachings of Buddha, it is manifested through a very simple symbology. If we say jewel and lotus flower, which one of the two represents the male and which one the female? It's not difficult. Lotus flower, the male? No. The jewel, the male, the flower, the female, with no taboos. It's not that we have problems here. So what happens is that when we talk about male and female, the male part represents method. By method we mean love and compassion, bliss, joy. The female represents wisdom, and here it's not about man or woman. We are talking about of a characteristic that we all have, whether we are men or women. We all have both the male and female part. We all have the part of method and wisdom, the more rational part and the more emotional part, and we all have these aspects. So Mani Padme Hum means balance between male and female. Om means the being, and instead of balance between male and female, means balance between reasoning and emotion, the union of method, and so the acting with awareness, the acting for the benefit of the others, the part of love, compassion, put together with wisdom. The wisdom is a coherent view of reality. And all the teachings of Buddha can be summarized with this union of method and wisdom, of male and female. And if we want to give a more correct translation, it wouldn't just be Om, jewel, lotus flower, Hum. Would be more corrected Om, jewel in the lotus flower, Hum. That usually becomes a bit like sensual, a bit something, maybe something that goes another direction, but actually that represents that the method and the wisdom should not be lived as something separate. Should not be lived as like first one and then the other. It needs to be put together in one thing. The part of reason and the more emotional part needs to be put together. The part that is what we call our male or female aspect, to be more precise from a philosophical point of view, the part of the compassion and love and the part of the wisdom and correct view of reality, they need to be put together in one thing. And also when we say that first there is the part of the method that then unites with the wisdom. It means that first you develop love and compassion, through which, on the basis of which, you develop the correct view of reality. Then, if you go even on a deeper level of explanation, according to Vajrayana, the Tantra, it would be the union of bliss and emptiness, without getting into details now. But the mantra of Mani Padme Hum brings all of this with itself. So, when I attribute the meaning that Om Mani Padme Hum means compassion, because it's the essence of Avalokiteshvara, so an eye for everyone, and a hand for everyone, the capacity of seeing and acting for the benefit of everyone. Going to transcend my own selfishness doesn't mean to go against me, but it means to be able to see that the other is as important as me. And there isn't a sacrifice. I don't sacrifice myself for the other. The happiness and the suffering of the other is as important for me as my own. So I transcend selfishness by developing altruism. And this is one meaning, and together with this there is a part of balance between method and wisdom. Love and compassion, correct view of reality. And from this we could spend hours explaining the mantra, Mani Padme Hum, getting more into the details of the part of the method and the wisdom, what is the correct view of reality, and so on. But the beautiful thing is that the more we go deeper in the knowledge and experience on morality, patience, enthusiastic effort, and so on, all the part of the method and part of the wisdom, the correct view of reality, the emptiness of intrinsic existence, interdependence, and so on. All of this is summarized in Om Mani Padme Hum. And when I recite it, me or anyone, when we recite this, we are connected with love, with wisdom, with what I want to be. I want to develop love and compassion towards the others. I am going back in that. I am giving myself that direction constantly. So to conclude, I give you the transmission of the mantra, then we recite it together, and then I invite you to try to take a mala, short advertisement break. In the shop close to here we have some nice malas. Also rosary is fine, doesn't have to be a Buddhist rosary, otherwise it doesn't work. And usually we do with the left hand to remember wisdom. We use the left hand to remember ourselves that everything is interdependent and empty of intrinsic existence. If one is not comfortable with the left hand, you can just do it with the right hand, but the original meaning is that. And if one really wants to do it very precisely, as you recite the mantra, usually you keep the mala at the height of the heart, because you visualize the mantra at the heart. Then you also add the visualization and so on, but at the beginning it's just about creating a habit to recite and to experience how this also protects mind. So repeat after me. Now we recite it together. at dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Traditionally, when the transmission of a mantra is given, then a commitment also is given, like a formal commitment to recite for a certain number of times for the whole life. Here there is no commitment, but I invite you to take a commitment with yourselves with a determined uh, interval. So like for a week maybe, but to do it like 100 times a day or 10 minutes a day. Try, because what happens is that if we don't get out of our comfort zone a little bit and don't create the habit won't create itself. So both in uh, abandoning what is harmful, but also cultivating what is good, it's not easy, like both of them. And we need to create a habit. And I believe that the habit of having a mantra that feel part of our lives, that become an inner habit, it's very good for us. It's very positive. It's a habit that needs to be cultivated, created. Then one maybe asks, well, one mantra, there are many. Maybe bit by bit we can transmit also others, and but it should be what touches us the most. There is one that has more affinity with one or another. One of the reasons for which in Tibetan Buddhism there is an infinity of Buddhas and mantras is because we're all different and we have different approaches. So, but the important thing is to try. Once Lama Gangchen said that mantras are a bit like medicine. When the doctor gives you the medicine, you don't ask for the composition, you just take the medicine. Then you can also learn the composition, but first you need to see whether it works or not. So it's a bit like that. You try, see how it is, you bring your mind to that, try to feel life also with that a little bit. I want to thank everyone. We will see each other next Wednesday. Me tomorrow will be in Albania, then the day after will be in Naples. I will give a conference there, then I will go back next week and will be here next Wednesday. I would like to make a practical request for now. There is a person that is waiting for me that I didn't expect to be able to see. It was one of the great sponsors of Lama Gangchen. He came from Nepal today, and he will be only here now, so I have to go and meet him. And then tomorrow at 8 I will give a lesson in Albaniano, so let's just say hi to each other briefly. So thank you and see you soon.